Farmer and Rancher discussion. I'm Nick Corbell from Charlotte, Montana, and I will be serving as the moderator for this round. At this time, out of respect for all the competitors, please turn off your cell phones and all other electronic devices. Also, please keep distractions as minimal as possible to allow for full concentration by the competitors. Serving as timer for this round is Clayton Moore. The topic for this round is question 1. Urban sprawl presents significant challenges for farmers and ranchers, impacting access to land and resources. We see that 1.9 million acres of agricultural land are lost to development each year. How can Farm Bureau help promote responsible growth in communities while mitigating the loss of farms, ranches, and agrarian way of life? We appreciate you taking the time to attend this contest. Your support is appreciated by the contestants. Contestants, please come and take your places up front. The contestants have been briefed on the contest and realize that their general discussion should be directed at each other rather than at the audience. Remember, the discussion is meant to simulate a committee meeting, not a panel discussion. The burden is on the contestants to moderate themselves and conduct themselves in a cooperative and congenial manner. Please no writing until all contestants are seated. The contestants for this round are Cady Brown, Fiona Mott Hankins, Slivka, and Joe Lackman. Following the opening statements will be 25 minutes of open discussion, followed by 1 minute of quiet time for the contestants to prepare their 1-minute closing statements. Contestants, in voluntary order, make your 30-second opening statements. Please stand and direct your opening statements to the audience. The timer will indicate when your 30 seconds have elapsed by holding up the red card. You may now begin.
I loved growing up in the Gallatin Valley, and because I want a future in production agriculture, I probably won't be able to return there. Urban sprawl is a huge issue we as young agriculturalists and Farm Bureau face as a whole. I think there are 3 solutions that might help mitigate this issue. One is education on conservation easements, what they are, as well as succession planning and working with these developers to continue the trust between the industry and consumers.
Once we take agricultural land out of production and put pavement over it, that's the loss of land. That's the loss of what we can do in our livelihoods and what we're doing as producers in this world. I want to say Montana Farm Bureau has a unique opportunity to go up and say, hey, we in its membership have a livelihood that we need to protect. I'm excited for the opportunities. I'm excited for the thoughtful conversations we're going to have. I want to say that we're going to have great days. Thanks, everyone.
A couple of years ago, I was riding a pickup with a farmer from Flathead County. He told me that he heard a stat that county loses about 1,000 acres to development a year. A lot of which is ranchettes, so properties that maybe have some production on some small portions of it, but not commercial scale farmland. Either way, we're losing a lot of ground, and I'm excited to talk about some solutions to how we can advocate for production agriculture and potentially some unique ideas when it comes to zoning and counties.
As an individual who is trying to get into my own end of production agriculture, I find it very difficult to attempt to purchase land. With the average land prices in Montana costing around $4,100 for irrigated acreage, $1,000 for dry land acreage, and $890 for pasture land, it's extremely difficult for young farmers and ranchers to get into production agriculture. What's driving these costs up and why? And I believe that Farm Bureau
You have heard the opening statements. The contestants may now proceed with the discussion. Contestants, please direct your discussion to your fellow panel members.
I think, do we have to talk into these things? Yeah. Okay. I think as young agriculturalists, land is one of our very limited resources, and it's something that, like you said, Fiona, is very hard to come by. I'd be really interested to hear your guys' thoughts on specific solutions that we can discuss today that might help, will not solve the whole issue, help chip away at it.
Basically, I personally think that partnering with non-agricultural landowners is one of
production that I do and everything that goes around that, general promotion, social media, I think that's a great way to get some general awareness out about what production ag is. And that's a big divide we're seeing in some of these areas like Bozeman, Kalispell, Missoula, even Billings to an extent, is there are people who have neighbors that aren't in production agriculture, the way some of these subdivisions are going up. They have no idea what they're doing, what's that sprayer about, etc. Well, media can have a reach to where we can land an impression on their feed and get some general knowledge going there. And that general knowledge, who knows what doors that's gonna open in terms of maybe how we think about further development, zoning in these counties, etc.
Riley, I think you bring up a great point, and just from a personal perspective of working with you in the past with Agri Studios and Northern Ag Network, we had this interesting tour that actually went around the state to Thank Farming this year. And one of those places, we went out to 7th Street in Billings, Montana. Rick Kraft, he's a producer out there. He has been a feedlot operator for years and years, does his own silage corn in a sense. We're seeing urban sprawl directly go up against his back door. And one of the statements that he brought out when we were introducing him and all the sponsors that we had is he said, in 10 years, guys, I don't know if we're going to be able to have the operation. I don't know if we're going to be here. And a lot of that comes down to urban encroachments. Where we had conversations, I think, in previous meetings where we do see that we're putting up land development on some of the best ground in our entire states. And to me, in one perspective, that's very concerning because we're moving people out of production agriculture, we're taking away from the best grounds. And on the other sense, I know this was part of the question, we do have communities that are thriving. And we are bringing people in. And some of those are farm bureau members, some of those are in our agribusinesses. They aren't in production agriculture, but they want the livelihood, they want the lifestyle, they want the feel of what farming has to offer. So I'm curious because Cady brought up educational opportunities and how this maybe aligns and saying, as we do work, because I do believe that a lot of these issues, 90% of it is handled at the city and the county level. How do we do that as Farm Bureau counties, Cady, and educate them about urban sprawl and where this direction is going?
That's a great question, Joe. I think that we have a lot of power being a grassroots organization. I mean, we can work from the county level to the state level and then all the way up to the national level. And I think that is something so unique about Farm Bureau and the opportunities it gives us. As far as that specific question, I think working on policy, I know conservation easements are something we've done in the ranches I've worked on and in my neighborhood to help kind of limit that development on this ground and maybe educating on that, talking about that, bringing that into a policy and possibly more of a Farm Bureau policy as well. Fiona, I would like to hear your thoughts on how would that implement on the east side today? Because I know Gallatin Valley, I know Dillon really well, but how would that look in eastern Montana?
Yeah, so we don't have the same level of urban sprawl as Gallatin County does, or Lackman County, like you mentioned, Riley. But it is happening. We see some subdivisions have gone in the Miles City area. They're not selling nearly as quickly, and they're not nearly as sought after by a lot of out-of-staters. But what we see is more in-state people moving out to eastern Montana. So people from the Gallatin County that still want to live in Montana, but they can't quite afford Gallatin anymore. So I think for education, I think that it's a great idea. I would maybe say that instead of just educating the current members of Farm Bureau, we as Farm Bureau members need to reach out to some of those individuals who have purchased some of these 2,100 acre plot properties, and we need to educate them on things such as Montana Farm Bureau, that we are not just a large operation. You have to have cows, you have to be farming wheat, you have to be doing all of that. We also have members that have flower farms, that have beekeeping, that have 10 sheep in their backyard, things along those lines. Those are agriculturalists. They are more than welcome here, and I think educating the population around us rather than just our Farm Bureau members, because they're part of our community now.
I think education is a really interesting point. I think that's kind of where our discussion is leading today. But education is such a broad solution. I mean, that's kind of our solution to a lot of things. I know, Riley, you had mentioned media, and that's a really, really good tool. Could you touch a little bit more on how we could use that to not only educate members, but consumers, and then these new landowners that Fiona was mentioning?
Well, that's where we start getting into basically using media to craft a story to tell people who are the decision makers in this case. So yeah, we talk a lot about general education, about what production ag is in these areas that also are very fast growing urban areas here in Montana now. So the next step is, how do we get to people who are in charge of how some of these subdivisions come to be, for example? How do we not only craft a story that targets them, but get viewership there as well? And there's certainly some ideas that might come into my mind. It's a pretty big, could be a complex goal, but I'm curious if any of you guys have any ideas. Media or not, how do we reach out to these people?
Riley, I think I really appreciate the fact that you said we have to move to the decision makers. And at that level, I believe it's very heavily on our county commissioners first, and then also our elected officials. One neat thing that Billings does in our area is every month, the Billings Chamber actually puts on this Chamber Act Committee. And we meet, and it can be various folks. One of the presentations was actually the owner of the Northern Hotel, right? It's one of those events where, you know, Montana Farm Bureau always has their conventions with them, and he's pretty excited to support in a sense. But when 15 years ago, when he bought this Northern Hotel, he knew that this city was rooted in agriculture. So if you look at those front doors next year when we go into that convention, there's actually wheat sticks as their door openers in this sense. He is educated in that sense, but it's because he showed up to these Chamber Act meetings. I believe Montana Farm Bureau is uniquely positioned at the county level first to actually have these conversations and educate specifically our county commissioners, and then also include our business and industry folks, right? These are the people that are expanding. These are people bringing in money. We have folks from out of state that are investing quite heavily in our lifestyle and our livelihood, and those are people we need to educate. And to my mind, I can leverage my own organization, the Northern Ag Network. We can tell these stories. We're out there every single day doing that in a sense, and one of those was Rick Stahl that I previously mentioned, and the fact that you might not be farming there in a few years. So I'm curious because we could talk around this all day, but I wonder what you guys are currently doing in your county farm bureaus, if this is something that you already have implemented, or should we actually make this go statewide? Should we ask that each of our county farm bureaus goes out and has a seminar with our county commissioners? Cady, I see that you're interested and have an idea. I'll let you take it away.
I couldn't agree more with you, Joe. I think that going to those people at the local and state level, those leaders, those decision makers, is so important. And I think something that I notice in Southwest counties is my parents always tell me they went to school in Bozeman, and they tell me that Dillon looks like Bozeman did 20 years ago, and that terrifies me. So I really think that at our local levels, like you said, go talk to those state people, bring up our stories. I mean, people hold on to those emotions, but we also have facts. I mean, just this morning, the presenter talked about how we are losing 4.23 acres a minute, and have been for the last 22 years. That's a pretty eye-catching fact, I think, and if we take that to the state, those even just as low as the city, especially in Bozeman, and I think we need to realize how big of a pull Farm Bureau has. I didn't realize that until I spent the summer in DC with AFBF. They listen to us. We just need to show up and be clear and straightforward with why we think what we think, how it's not only affecting us, but how it's affecting consumers and people just every day. We also can focus on, if we're going to go into the non-producers and the landowners, like you were saying, is they can make money off of us. We have to pay them to lease their land, so why wouldn't they? But working with those developers, there's a ranch in Madison County that does something similar, where they have divided it into about 20 parcels. It's a 2,000-acre ranch, and they are working with these developers. So yeah, you break up, you get the money from those houses, but you also have a working ranch on the rest of the 1,500 acres or so. So working with those developers, but also, like you said, at the state level, Riley, I'd be really interested to hear your opinion on what your state county can do.
Good question. So I'm from Fergus County, so Lewistown kind of be our primary town there. It's about the same size as Dillon. And similar situation where, yeah, Bozeman was what Lewistown was 20 years ago, or, yeah, getting all mixed up here. But anyway, so we are in the ripple effect of the population growth in Bozeman. So we're not seeing quite the level of conflict that Gallatin County is seeing, for example. There's also a few differences in basically some of the ground immediately surrounding Lewistown. It's some farm ground on the So we are seeing some subdivisions popping up in particularly some of the range ground areas. The way that is coming to be isn't such a big displacement issue for us as it is compared to these larger areas. But I think there's absolutely an opportunity for our county farm bureau to step up and once again, just kind of share the general message of what ranching looks like in that area and hopefully maintain some really good relationships with our county commissioners, for example. So, yeah. Another thing that I was kind of thinking about is we're talking a lot about general promotion, maybe using media, and really kind of just general awareness of the issue. And Farm Bureau may be playing a part in that at the county level, maybe at the state level here as well. I'm kind of curious, is there a way that Farm Bureau can help on the training side for those at the county level to educate us on how to more effectively share these stories?
I think that's a really good point that you brought up because Farm Bureau does have so many amazing trainings already. I mean, we heard all about ACE and we got to listen to their amazing presentations. But if you look on not only the AFBFF website, but also Montana Farm Bureau, we do have a lot of resources for these people. It's just about finding those resources. So I encourage everybody to go to the Montana Farm Bureau website and AFBF and look at those resources. But I also think on top of that, you can find trainings in your community. I mean, we live in a digital age, find them online, focus on those Farm Bureau ones. You can hear from Farm Bureau members from all over the nation if you really dig into it. And I think that it's important we get that training before we go to state or any government officials or any decision makers. But Fiona, I would love to hear how you think your county can make steps in this education.
Yeah, thank you, Cady. I believe that our county is, like I was saying earlier, it's a little bit slower on the urban sprawl type of thing. So we have a little bit faster, better of a chance to kind of get on top of it more so than it sounds like all of the counties that the rest of you are all a part of. I believe that we can host things just such as get to know your neighbor type of thing, a social event. I think that a lot of times we're a little too focused here at Farm Bureau on policy, and I love policy making, and I think it's a really fantastic way, but in order to get people to come into Farm Bureau to first hear that policy, I think we need to do things that are more outreach. So things like maybe just a backyard barbecue, get to know your new urban sprawl neighbor. Obviously, we don't call it that because that's not attractive to them, but we could come up with a name with a little bit more time. Do backyard barbecues, do things like social events. We, as Farm Bureau and YFNR, we need to show our faces a little bit more, show ourselves at things like the Buckmore Sale and other places along those lines, just our county fairs, things like that. Cady, you've mentioned a couple times policy. You've mentioned policy a few times, and you mentioned bringing things to our lawmakers. I would really like to know what does that look like to you? Because, like I say, I think one of our biggest issues, personally, is that we have a little bit of disconnect between the average farmer rancher and those who are already currently in Farm Bureau. So how does that look to you?
I think that policy, while it's not my personal cup of tea, as agriculturalists, it is something we need to be well versed in. And I think when we look, especially if we're just going to start at the grassroots level, right? Like I see an issue in Dillon. I know we have city council meetings. They're posted on Facebook. Find your own city council meetings. Find your county meetings, and really go. And you can just make a presence there. I mean, if you email the right person, figure out that person, and try to get on the agenda and talk about your issue, or come with public comments, and maybe that can be your public comment. And like you said, just get it out there. Just let them know that there is an issue with this, and if they want to talk later, schedule a meeting with them. Really, really show them with facts and emotion why they need to care about this. Because, if you eat or wear clothes, egg affects you, and that's everybody.
I think it also affects the personal decision makings of the landowner, right? To me, when we look at policy, Fiona, and I'm glad that you brought it up, I think we're very remiss in the fact that there is money in this game, and some of these folks are looking to get out of these operations. I'll bring up Billings, for example. That land is going to be annexed, it's going to be zoned out, regardless of the decision making there. And my personal take on urban sprawl is that it is taking people out of livelihoods in those certain areas. Now, if they can cash in and make bank and go somewhere else where they can continue to be in production agriculture, that's a pretty big incentive. right? For somebody to come into this area and say, hey, I'm going to give you $10 million, what is the effects of that? I think that's where we need to get back into really diving in. Riley, you have a lot of money coming into your backyard, right? APR, I know it's not an urban sprawl issue, but it does bring up the fact that there's a pretty big money influence in your area, and it is taking people out of their operations. Can you speak to it? Is there things that you're currently doing just in your area to help out with educating the public? I know it's contracting maybe some of the money's coming in, and at the end of the day, I do think the private landowner has the right to do what they want with what they have. But what's your take? I'm curious, because you have an interesting situation.
Yeah, I was actually gonna bring that up. I think it kind of goes in hand with what Fiona talked about on, well, what can Farm Bureau do in addition to just policy? And there's actually an example right in our town of something that recently happened. We have a pizza place that opened, and they partnered with the American Prairie Reserve to host an event there where everybody got a free slice of pizza to celebrate 20 years of bison being on the prairie, was what they were going after. And kind of looking at that, a lot of ranchers got pretty upset that this pizza place supported that movement. And it got to me to thinking, well, that happened because we weren't there. We weren't there to tell our story. So that's a good question. What can the County Farm Bureau start doing in our own communities, once again, to start sharing what we do and why that might conflict with the goal of the American Prairie Reserve?
I think that's something that we can see. I know Northwest counties have been doing a great job. They have those coffee hours, getting out in the community, and like Fiona mentioned earlier, having those social kind of outreach movements. Again, I know Northwest counties is a really good example of that, or even just things like this, like we're out in the community, we're in Missoula, a lot of us, this is far from home, but I would love to hear from each of you on how you think your counties can do those outreach events to try and connect with the general public and let people hear our stories.
I think one of the best avenues we have for this, Cady, is actually ACE, right? It's in the name, Advocate, Communicate, Educate. And the goal of ACE, when I come in, I was a graduate of Class 6, I think it's one of the most phenomenal leadership trainings we have in our state that's provided by an ag organization. And the entire goal of this is how do we educate our county leaders to go back in their communities and create change and inspire change. And do the things like Riley was saying, and being there and present at the pizza party where APR comes in, right, to be able to tell the side in a thoughtful way, right? This is a controversial subject, and it's hard to dive into all the specificities when we're really talking about it. But I encourage everybody to participate in ACE, and I know there might be a few graduates. Riley, I believe you might have been an ACE graduate, maybe in rural Montana, but I'm curious, are you guys interested in participating? It's a phenomenal organization.
I heard lots of great things about ACE, and that's probably the training that I was wondering about earlier, is programs like that. ACE, Real Montana, these are programs where we run people through so that they can better advocate for their industries, but also to meet the right people, to meet the, to be able to go talk to the county commissioners, to meet some of the other policymakers, other influencers in this state that might have a bit of a say in what happens to how this urban sprawl goes down.
Cady, I'm interested, you've asked us a few times what we can do in our counties, but I don't think anybody has asked you what you would like to do or what you do currently do in your county and what you see for this advocating for agricultural land.
Yeah, thank you, Fiona. I just saw we got our 5-minute warning, so I'm going to try to make this brief, and then we can go back to our 3 main points that we took from this discussion. But I think in Southwest counties, that's where I really got into Farm Bureau, especially at the collegiate level. And we work really hard. I think I have a really unique opportunity at the collegiate level. I mean, we have so many people in our chapter and in our Farm Bureau that are from all over the country. So really taking those opinions and those perspectives and listening to them. We do the social outreach, like you said. We try to educate the elementary schoolers on what egg is and why it's important. And I think just teaching those kids why egg is important. And we try to get out in the community as much as we can, whether it's through community events, food drives, we're doing a fundraiser right now, but we really work on just that outreach, like you said. It is so important, like Riley was mentioning, to share our story. But as we're wrapping up here, I would really like to hear each of your 3 main takeaways on solutions to urban sprawl.
Thanks, Cady. I believe my biggest main takeaway, of course, as we've talked about, and I think everybody will agree that education is our biggest takeaway, and what that education looks like can be tailored from community
Thanks for bringing up a point. I think three main takeaways that I would have is first and foremost, you have to show up. Riley said it best, right? We weren't there and the decision-making process got took out of our hands, right? I believe this organization does a good job at making sure the leaders show up and they're going to be the change makers. So I think first and foremost, we need to be in those conversations. I'll loop it back into a previous idea that I had before, because I do think a lot of these decisions are localized and within their specific county. So I would advocate that you go out and create an act chamber banquet or a breakfast that I just gave up in the Billings area, because it has worked so well. It's brought those business leaders, it's brought those legislators, it's brought our county commissioners into one room to have these conversations. And then at the end of the day, let's employ Agri Studios over here to come tell our story a little bit better too.
Same with Northern Ag Network. I think we all kind of have a role in various levels on how to tell this story. And what's really cool is this is what we all seem to agree on. We need to do a better job of that. And Farm Bureau already has some great programs that support some of these endeavors. I think getting county members involved in things like ACE is a great starting point in developing relationships with the people that make these decisions, sharing with them the story that we have to tell.
I think you guys all brought some really good points to the table. We've had a really good discussion today. My three main points that I got from this whole discussion is media, policy, and outreach. Like you said, Fiona, we really do need to work on bringing those social people together and bring back to what Riley said about telling our story and sharing our stories with these people and showing them why egg is important and why they should care about our livelihoods just as much as we do. Like Joe said, we also need to go back to the policy and at the local level, which is something that Farm Bureau is great at. And really utilizing our opportunity there and the trainings that ACE and other Farm Bureau trainings that we can get at the state level. I think that media as well is really important. And Riley, I'd love to hear more details on how you think we could use media specifically to work on policy outreach.
I think, like I was talking about, we find specific stories in specific areas and find the specific audience that video needs to go to, in addition to some general audiences that we can already push through some of these social media channels, Farm Bureau's main pages included. So I think that's step one, is we gotta find an example on where someone's getting pushed out. If they're willing to tell their story, we work with that person and really, dive into finding a good strategy to share that with the rest of the world.
Fiona, I'm going to let you take off the last words. In Mott City, who do you think we need to reach out to?
I would say some of the biggest voices in Miles City are going to be honestly, the Bucking Horsedale committee members. They have some of the biggest influence and the biggest reach because they have a platform like Bucking Horsedale. First and foremost, I think it's kind of interesting. A lot of them are agriculture producers. So, okay, thank you.
Time has been called. Please allow 1 minute of quiet time for the contestants to prepare their 1 minute closing statements. Contestants, in voluntary order, please stand and make your closing statements.
I just want to thank everyone for a great discussion. I think we had a lot of really interesting viewpoints and backgrounds, and we brought them together to come up with some pretty good plans to tackle this enormous issue we have. But I really want to go back to what Riley said. Tell your story. That's what it comes back to. We want to work on outreach at the local level with the politics and the policy and going to those decision makers, as well as the social level of just being in our community and showing up and being in those rooms where Farm Bureau runs on and seize those opportunities with trainings like ACE to educate ourselves to better educate the public.
Thank you, Cady. I think we have a unique opportunity as Montana Farm Bureau to be at the forefront of this conversation. I think back to one of my distant relatives. He's Lackman. He's just south of the Rickcraft feedlot that I was talking about. He's also facing this situation. There's more than just them that are facing city encroachment. I'll throw a few stats out there. I just got done at Bozeman. We've seen different changes. What used to be Cady was farms is now urban sprawl and connecting four corners of Bozeman. There was 94,000 acres that got took out of production agriculture in Gallatin Valley over the course of 1995 to 2016. This is a decent number that's taken out of production agriculture, and that's a shame. I do run the fine line of private land ownership is their decision in this sense, and I think we always need to keep that in mind. I'm excited for what Riley's doing on the media end. I think we can collaborate there more. I'm excited for Cady as she goes out and educates people and gets involved with her communities here soon. And I know Fiona has a unique opportunity to actually beat the battle in Miles City before this becomes an issue in their own community. Thanks, everyone.
When we think about all these issues, urban encroachments, out of area property ownership, and the ranches selling to basically owners that do not have an agriculture goal at all. This is a complicated issue, and it's not one that's going to go away tomorrow. But I think what we all talked about today gives us a little bit of positivity that maybe we can start having some conversations and maybe even changing some minds about the importance of production agriculture on this land. I really like what we talked about with using our current resources in Farm Bureau to empower current members to share these stories, train them up, to get them to be great public speakers, utilizing programs like the ACE program, referring people to Real Montana. That's great. And then just being present in the community as well. And finally, media. Media has a big role in this, and I'm glad to be a part of that.
Urban sprawl and other places such as the APR, or we have the wind and solar farms going in eastern Montana and in western Montana for that matter. And you have recreational land that's being bought for hunting and other types of recreation is not going away. I was speaking to my uncle beforehand, and he told me that this topic was the topic of conversation for his wife and our discussion meeting 35 years ago. So it is not going away, it's here to stay. So what we need to do as Farm Bureau members, and what we have the awesome unique opportunity to do, is we can have discussions with our neighbors, with people who we have been neighbors with forever, or people who have just moved into new 20-acre plots. I think that Cady's brought up amazing points about talking to our policymakers here at Farm Bureau and our actual lawmaker policymakers, getting in sorry, Joe. I knew I was gonna do that today. Joe has brought up good points about going to county commissioners. Thank you.
Please show these contestants our appreciation for a job well done. The judges for today's contest were President Cindy Johnson, Cole Coxville, Merrill McCamey, Russ Miner, and J.M. Pett. Now I would ask these judges to report with Sue Ann to the tabulation room. Okay, she's in the back. Thank you, judges and contestants. Now let's take the opportunity to get to know our contestants. Contestants, please introduce yourself and say a few words about your involvement in agriculture.
Well, it's great to be here. I'm Riley Slivka, raised in Winnipeg, Montana, on a grain farm and cow-calf operation out there. So that's wheat, malt barley, and getting into pulses as well. So lentils has been a pretty big thing out there. My day-to-day job, though, is Agri Studios. That's a video production company that I started a little while back to share these stories, kind of like what we were talking about today. So I serve ag clients around the state, some out of state, and something new every day. I'm also a current Class 6 member of Real Montana. That's Resource Education and Agriculture Leadership, and that's been a really great good experience as well.
Yeah, I want to start off and just say a genuine appreciation to everybody showing up and competitors. This is awesome. I got to give a quick shout out to Vic. He's the one that kind of pressured me into doing this, and this is the first contest that I'm participating when it comes to discussion. So I think that's the idea of putting ourselves out there, getting us outside of our comfort zones, talking about difficult issues that we just faced up. Hi everyone, I'm Joe Lackman. I work with the Northern Ag Network. I just got done at Bozeman, so go Cats. Proud alumni over there. I know we're in Missoula, so I'll try and hold that faith in my alma mater pretty strong here. I grew up in a farming family, so my family is actually, we were in the Humboldt area, got displaced in Senates. We've had some of these urban encroachment issues actually happen with my own family. But I'm proud to say my parents at the Boone High Show started farming there. We do seed coolers, barley for them, and then sugar beet production, alfalfa seed, and various other commodities in a sense. And it's one of those ways where I know I'm probably not going to go directly back to the family farm, but I'm excited to be in this industry. It's a livelihood that I know we all appreciate and we want to protect, and this is a neat opportunity to come out here. So what I'll tell you is we're always looking for discussion meet competitors, and next year, instead of throwing me under the bus, I'm going to say, step up and maybe come join us up here in a sense too. It's not as scary as you think.
I agree with Joe. Please come do this. I'm a senior in college and got thrown into this, so if you have more experience than me. But hi everybody, my name is Cady Brown. I was born and raised in Three Forks, Montana. I do not come from an agricultural background, although I did my fair share of time in 4-H and FFA, which is how I got into agriculture. I'm currently a senior at the University of Montana Western, studying business with an equine minor. I'm president of our collegiate chapter and have been for 2 years. I'm a proud Southwest Counties member. Huge thank you to Jan, who's not here right now, but he has supported me a lot. I love Farm Bureau and just want to thank everybody for what you do. I think that it's a very welcoming community to come into as a young person, as a new agriculturalist. I have one mare. I work on ranches. I do a little bit of everything. I showed pigs in 4-H. I did public speaking in FFA with Joe, and yeah, thanks for having me.
I am Fiona Hankins, and I am not a public speaker whatsoever. I'm a mom to 2 little boys, and that's my main job, and so this is the most people I've talked to or near in a long time. So if I sound nervous, I am. We do cattle operation. We raise commercial cow calves out in Miles City area, north of Miles City. I get to ranch with my husband, my dad, my uncle, my other uncle, my aunt, my mom, everybody. So I love working out there, being out there. I don't so much love being in front of everyone, but here we are. It's been a great opportunity. I really had an awesome time having a discussion. And here's some of the boys.
All right, one more round of applause for these contestants. Thank you for attending the Final Four competition. The winner of this competition will take home a 2025 Polaris Ranger 570, sponsored by participating Polaris dealers of Montana. The winner will be announced tonight during the celebration banquet at the fairgrounds. Before everyone starts to get out of their seats, the buses are leaving all at one time, 6:15. They'll be at the rotunda, not in front of the hotel. So just keep that in mind. All the buses are leaving at 6:15. And have a great night. Thank you.